Hello, friends, students, and strangers, and thanks for tuning in to Master English with Tim, the podcast where Tim teaches you English in depth and detail without ever hurrying, so you can fight the devil in the details in English and win. I'm Tim, native speaker from the United States, English teacher since 2005, world traveler, polyglot, and writer of several resources for learning English, including this podcast, now in its 104th episode. In this week's episode, I'm going to do two things. The first one is that I am going to tell you about the anatomy of trees. And then I will take one of the words that we learn and focus on that word for the rest of the episode. Okay, you can already see from the title of the episode that the target word is stick, so there's no big surprise here. But I think that what you will learn about this word will be surprising. So let's start by talking about trees. Let's talk about trees from the bottom up. The part of a tree that is underground is the roots. Roots, of course, help the tree to drink water and find nutrients in the soil, and they help the tree to stay in place when the wind blows really hard, like it's actually doing right now. I don't know if you can hear this, but outside there's a big thunderstorm going on. And yeah, I don't know if you can hear that. In any case, roots, back to roots. Roots also help the soil stay in place when the wind blows hard, not just the tree, but also the soil, and that is good for the other plants that are nearby. Okay, now let's move up to the next part of a tree. The big, thick, heavy part of a tree that is just above the ground is called the trunk. Some smaller trees have trunks that are small enough that you can hug them and your hands will touch on the other side of the tree. A lot of trees have a trunk, though, that is too thick to hug. Okay, before we move up, let's talk about the skin of a tree. The skin of a tree is called bark. Some trees have really smooth bark. For example, the white trees that are called birch, that's B-I-R-C-H, those trees have smooth white bark, but most trees have rough brown or gray bark. Okay, now we can move up one more step on the tree. The next part of a tree is a branch. A branch is a relatively thick piece of wood that is attached to the trunk of a tree and that grows out of the trunk. Some branches are close to the ground, some branches are higher up. Some branches are strong enough to hold a person without breaking, but others are not. Some branches die and fall, hopefully on the ground, instead of on, for example, the roof of your house or car or even someone's head. Now, after branches, we have sticks. A stick is a relatively thin piece of wood that is attached to a branch and grows out of the branch. If a stick falls on your head, it probably will cause pain, but nothing more, no injury. After sticks, we have twigs. That's T-W-I-G-S. One twig, two twigs. I'm sure you can see what is coming next. A twig is a very thin piece of wood that is attached to a branch and grows out of a branch. So twigs are very small, and often very little kids find twigs, and for whatever reason, they find them interesting and tell strangers about the twigs they have found. Isn't that nice, though? I always find it funny when a very small person I've never met wants to tell me about the twig that they found. Okay, let's talk about the second to last part of a tree. That part is a leaf. Plural is leaves. L-E-A-F, one leaf, many leaves. L-E-A-V-E-S. Leaves are, of course, the flat, thin, flexible pieces of green material that plants use to take in sunlight. In the fall or autumn, the leaves turn red, then yellow, and then brown, and then they fall from the trees. The last part of a tree, or actually of a leaf, is a stem. The stem of a leaf is the very thin, flexible, cylinder-shaped thing that is part of a leaf and attaches a leaf to a twig or branch. Of course, not all trees have leaves and stems. Pine trees, or just pines, P-I-N-E-S, are trees that don't have leaves, but instead long, very thin, like less than a millimeter thick. They have these green things that are very long and thin instead of leaves. Those long, very thin green things are called pine needles. Singular pine needle. You can find pines and pine needles most often in the far northern parts of our planet, like Canada and Greenland. Okay, that's all that you need to know about the anatomy of trees. Now let's come back to one of these words that you learned and really focus on it. We are going to focus on the word stick S-T-I-C-K, which can be a noun or a transitive verb or an adjective formed from a verb or an intransitive verb. If you don't know what transitive and intransitive verbs are, then I suggest you listen to episode 103 from last week, which explains all the different types of verbs. So, I decided to focus specifically on the word stick because in 3 different ways it is an excellent example of an English word that causes students problems, and I'm here to help solve those problems. So the word stick has these 3 features that often cause students problems. So first, stick, as already mentioned, can be a noun, a verb, or an adjective. Now, in a lot of languages, you can immediately understand if a word is a noun or adjective or whatever just by looking at it or hearing it, but in English, that is not true. One word can do many things, and that feature is definitely true of the word stick. Second, stick has a lot of meanings. Actually 9 or 10 of them. Either the meanings confuse students, or the students just don't know about all of the meanings in the first place. So when people think of words that mean many different things, I think that most often they think of get or like or take, words that are super, super common. But stick is kind of similar to those words in having many meanings, and it shows that it's not just get, like, and take that have many meanings. A lot of English words have many meanings, not just those ones that everybody thinks of. Now the third feature. These meanings of stick that I talked about, they occur in kind of groups. We have meanings of stick for the physical object, we have meanings about putting something someplace or locating it someplace, and we have meanings that are connected with being unable to move. So I will give you all the meanings of this word, stick, and I will tell them to you so that the connections are always clear and they are in groups that are logical. Now, before I start, I want to say that learning even a couple of meanings of stick that you didn't know before will give you ways to express yourself and understand others that you didn't have before. And honestly, that's super cool. Also, one thing I will not do in this episode is include phrasal verbs that are formed from stick. Doing that would be too much for a single episode, but I may do that in a future episode. So, let's talk about the first group of meanings of stick. This group is about physical objects. This group of meanings has 2 meanings in it. So, the first meaning is a noun. We already talked about this meaning actually, so a stick, again, is a small, roughly cylindrical shaped piece of wood that was part of a tree. So a stick is typically a centimeter or 2 thick. 4 examples. 1. They walked in the forest and collected dry sticks to make a campfire. 2. The sticks broke under our feet as we walked through the forest. 3. A stick fell from the tree and onto the ground next to me. 4th and last. He never seems to eat anything, and he is as thin as a stick. The second meaning in this group is also a noun. So in this case, a stick is a piece of food that is shaped more or less like a stick. 3 examples. 1. We brought carrot sticks and celery sticks to the party. 2. Would you like to order some breadsticks with your pizza? 3rd and last. I know they're not healthy, but I love to eat cheese sticks with tomato sauce. So actually, there are some restrictions or limitations on this meaning of the word stick. You can't say an apple stick, for example. It has to be a cheese stick, a vegetable stick like a carrot stick or celery stick or maybe a pepper stick, and also cheese sticks. Beyond those, well, you really don't have other kinds of food sticks. In any case, we are now ready for our second group of meanings. These meanings are about putting something someplace. There are 3 meanings in this group. And the first meaning in this group is to push something into a hole using force. So you don't just push, you push it kind of hard into a hole where there's maybe not quite enough space for this object to enter. And this is an irregular verb. Its forms are stick, stuck with a U, so that's S-T-U-C-K, and stuck, also with a U. So stick, stuck, stuck. 3 examples. 1. The little boy stuck his fingers in his ears and stopped listening to his mother. 2. He stuck a fork in the toaster to see what would happen and got a terrible electric shock. 3rd and last. Don't stick your nose in my business. The second meaning in this group is to carelessly put an object someplace without thinking whether it should be there or not. 3 examples. 1. I find it annoying when people just stick all kinds of emojis in the messages they send me. 2. My girlfriend never pays attention to what she's doing and sticks her phone or keys somewhere and then can't find them when it's time to leave. 3rd and last, you can't just take a library book and stick it back on the shelf wherever you want. So the 3rd and last meaning of stick in this group is a transitive verb. So if you stick one thing, for example, a small piece of paper with a short message on it, you stick that thing onto a second thing, for example, the refrigerator in your kitchen, it means that you push the first thing against the second thing so that the first thing stays and does not move. It'll be more clear in the examples. 3 examples. 1. Did you read the note that I stuck on the fridge for you? 2. When I was a teenager, I got paid to stick flyers advertising concerts onto walls around the city. 3rd and last, I don't understand why some people stick stickers all over their computers. Okay, we are now ready for the last group of meanings of stick. They are all connected with the idea of not moving. That kind of makes sense, right? Because if you push a stick into a hole and it's hard to make that stick enter, sometimes it happens that you can't pull the stick back out, so there's no more movement after that. But you do need to think about not moving here in a kind of open sense. It's not always about a physical object that's not moving. 3 meanings, well, maybe 3.5 in this group. So the first meaning in this group is an intransitive verb. So if something sticks in this meaning, it means that one object continues to be attached to another object without the use of pressure or pushing, and it may be difficult to remove. 4 examples. 1. Magnets stick to objects that are made of iron or steel. 2. I went on a walk in the woods on a rainy day, and a lot of dirt and leaves stuck to my shoes and pants. 3. The melted cheese inside of the microwave dried and stuck to the walls of the microwave. 4th and last, if you don't wash the food off of your plate tonight, it will dry and stick there, and then I will have to work harder to clean it tomorrow morning. So the second meaning in this group is the adjective stuck, which is one of those adjectives that we can sometimes magically create from the third form of a verb. So you remember how earlier I said stick, stuck, stuck? Well, this is the third one, stuck. So if something gets stuck, it enters a place or situation and can't get out. 3 examples. 1. Our car got stuck in the soft, wet ground. 2. Where are you? Sorry, we got stuck in traffic. 3rd and last. How is the new video game you got for your birthday? It's very hard. I'm still stuck on the 2nd level. The third meaning in this group is pretty interesting, actually. So if a fact or conclusion or skill sticks, it means that you remember it. Remembering is kind of like not moving, right? If you remember a fact, the fact goes into your brain and it doesn't leave, it doesn't disappear. 3 examples. 1. If you don't want to forget the vocabulary that you learn, if you really want it to stick, you need to actually use it. 2. For me, spoken instructions rarely stick. I always forget what the person told me to do, but written instructions definitely do stick. 3rd and last. I tested my daughter on her multiplication tables, 3 times 1, 3 times 2, 3 times 3, 3 times 4, and so on, until they really stuck, and she got an A on her test. Okay, one more meaning, and it's very close to the previous one. So if something bad that you say about another person, for example, rumors or an accusation, if those things stick, it means that people remember and believe them. 2 examples. 1. The police spent years trying to make an accusation against the mafia boss, hoping that at least one of the accusations would stick. 2nd and last. There was a rumor about our high school chemistry teacher that his family died from eating unfresh fish at a fast food restaurant. Although the rumor was not true, it stuck for years and people believed it. Actually, that is a true story. The part about people believing the rumor was a true story. He did not actually have family that died in a fast food restaurant, but for years, people spread that story, and the story definitely stuck, partly because it was such a strange and unusual story. Anyway, we actually have one more group of meanings, but it only has one meaning in it. This one is a verb, and it is quite specific. So, if you stick a landing in a sport, especially if you are a gymnast, if you stick a landing, it means that you land absolutely perfectly from a jump. You can only use this meaning of stick in a couple of different sports, and almost always as part of the expression to stick the landing. 2 examples. 1. The gymnast did all of her jumps and tricks perfectly, stuck the landing, and scored a 10. Second and last. It's an amazing feeling when you're mountain biking and make a big jump and then stick the landing. Okay, that's all for this week. I hope you found this episode useful and entertaining. I certainly enjoyed making it. Thank you for listening, and see you all next week.